Right, here I am, Andy XL, back again with another NFXL podcast. This time previewing NFL Week 3. So we've got teams who have got to 2-0 who will be looking for the hat trick this week. Those yet to register a win will be desperate to get one this week. But we saw some significant injuries ahead of Andy in Week 2, so that will change teams' outlooks ahead of this week's fixtures. Prediction wise, I've called 13 of 16 winning teams in week 1 and 14 of 16 in week 2. The 49ers over the Saints and the Falcons over the Vikings blot in my copybook in week 2. For the season, I'm just shy of 85% accurate in predicting who wins games. So I'm off to a pretty good start this season, I would say. So let's get to it and take a look at how week 3 could pan out for all 32 teams. Starting with Thursday night football, which is the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. So this kicks off week 3 and it's an AFC matchup between two teams who have started really well, the Bills in the Bills and really badly in the Dolphins. As I said in my intro, that means the Bills have a shot to take a big early lead in this division, and the Dolphins have to win here to avoid their season already spiraling downwards. Josh Allen has been sacked just twice in 2 games. Tua Tagovailoa has gone down 8 times. James Cook has rushed for 176 yards and 3 touchdowns. Devon Achane has just 85 yards and no scores on the ground. Those stats not only tell the tale regarding the respective players, but also tell you how the respective O lines are performing. The Bills have a good one, the Dolphins certainly do not. And a similar picture comes into focus when we look at the D lines. Although the Bills have injuries there, they look sure to dominate this one in the trenches and be able to put plenty of points on the board in this one. They've owned the Dolphins in recent years, and the last time the Dolphins won in Buffalo, well, it's in my lifetime, but only just. It's been a long time. Let's put it that way. The Dolphins do have Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Devon Achane, which is some fine talent. But this team just looks to be in disarray right now. Um, the Bills have topped 30 points in both of their opening games and are likely to do so again here. The Dolphins have just 35 points across the 2 games, but they did play better last week than in week 1, and they do have some big playability. So, you know, there could be reasons to say that the Dolphins can run the Bills close here, but on the current form and history telling us, you have to say the Bills are going to win this one quite easily. So I've gone for a score of Bills 34, Dolphins 20 in the Thursday night football game. Quick sip of coffee. Right, some brand in there. NFL mug. Had it for years. Right, Sunday early slot. Let's have a look at some of these games. Starting with the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. Two teams that fared better in week 2 than week 1, but the Falcons got a win and the Panthers came up short and are now 0-2. The Panthers have given up 26 and 27 points in their opening 2 games, and the Falcons' offense could be set to enjoy themselves in this one too. The Falcons had absolutely no pass rush last season, and that has changed early this season to improve their pass defense significantly, with 2 rookies registering their first sacks last season. And they should have a good enough D to keep the Panthers in check in this one. So, without any further ado, we'll move on to the score prediction. Carolina Panthers 20, Atlanta Falcons 27. Next up, Green Bay Packers at Cleveland Browns. The only beacon of hope on this Browns roster right now is their D line. But with the Packers D on fire early this season and the Browns having an immobile quarterback in Joe Flacco, the prospects of the Browns getting their first win of the season look highly dubious here. The Browns did put up a good showing in their first home game in week 1 to run the Bengals close, but this Packers team will surely have too much offense for the Browns to cope with here. So I've gone for Cleveland 16, Green Bay Packers 27 in that one. Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. With both these teams losing and the Colts winning in week 2, this game takes on extra significance for both teams as they risk falling 3 games out of the divisional lead for whichever team loses. These are two teams with strong pass rush units but suspect O-lines. So this could well come down to which O-line is able to hold up best against the opposing pass rushing unit and which of two quarterbacks with increasing questions over them can deliver when they really need to. The Texans have really struggled to run the ball, but the Jags have trouble stopping the run. So that could be another pressure point for both in this game. Can the Texans get it going on the ground, or can the Jags limit them on that front again? Right now, I would say the Jags have the edge in terms of receiver core available to them, and that might be just enough, along with home field advantage, to get a narrow win in this one. So I've gone Jacksonville 24, Houston Texans 23, and that would drop the Texans to 0-3 and mark a really bad start to their season. But let's see what comes to happen. Cincinnati Bengals at Minnesota Vikings. Now, bear in mind, I'm recording this on a Thursday evening before the Thursday night game, Thursday evening UK time. So, injuries and whatever, the picture's still not clear. Let's have a look at Cincinnati Bengals at Minnesota Vikings. Well, for these two right now, it looks grim up north. The Bengals are 2-0, the Vikings are 1-1, so neither of them have a losing record, but both have lost their starting quarterbacks ahead of this game, and that makes the Bengals extremely vulnerable to the Ravens in particular in the AFC North, and makes life really tough for the Vikings, who had the Packers and Lions to contend with in the NFC North. Excuse me. And the loss of Aaron Jones to add to the Vikings' woes could put their season hopes. I could see him evaporate pretty quickly. So for both squads, this is time for the backups to step up and shine, and for other players to come and pull their teams through. You know, let's see some people step up and shine some light through the gloom that is currently descended on these teams. Jake Browning will need to deliver by eliminating the errors we saw from him when he replaced Joe Burrow during last week's game. For the Vikes veteran, Carson Wentz needs to steady the ship, and for Jordan Mason to maraud on the ground for the Vikings. The Bengals have all their receiver core available for Browning, whereas Wentz will be without the still suspended Jordan Addison and will also miss the receiving threat Jones offered out of the backfield. But outside of this, the Vikings have injury issues with their O-line with Ryan Kelly and Justin Skill. Christian Darrisaw might be back this week. On the defensive side, inside linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel, and in their secondary with Harrison Smith and Jeff Okudah. Add to that the two high-profile injuries mentioned earlier, and they could be missing a number of key starters across their roster for this one. Outside of the Burrow injury, excuse my dodgy throat. Outside of the Burrow injury, the Bengals. Yeah, sorry, let's just look us through there. Outside of the Burrows injury, the only other loss for the Bengals is rookie edge guy Shemar Stewart. So, given all of that, this has to be a great opportunity for Browning to deliver a third win of the season for the Bengals, as long as, to supposedly paraphrase Barack Obama, Jake does not something it up. Obama was talking about Joe Biden. I'm talking about Jake Browning. Don't screw it up is essentially what we're saying there. Could be said in other words. Score prediction. Because of all the injuries the Vikings have got, I'm going to take the Bengals to get a win here by 24-17. Pittsburgh Steelers at the New England Patriots. Pre-season, I had the Steelers failing to make the postseason and the Patriots with a 50-50 chance of making it. After 2 weeks of action, I have not changed my view on either team. The Pats made a lot of good additions this off-season, but that always takes time for all of those changes to bed in. And this will be a really real litmus test of how that process is going. The Steelers are riding the annual Aaron Rodgers hype wave, but as I relentlessly keep saying, great quarterback that Rodgers has been, he is not that quarterback now. He can still be very good, but like all players of his age, is on the decline. And the Steelers have multiple injuries on their D2. Derek Harmon, Alex Highsmith on the outside of their D line, and Deshaun Elliott and Joey Porter in their secondary. Depending who of those are able to play this week, this could open up the passing game for Drake May and the Patriots in this one. So I'll take the Patriots to win here 24-20. Right. A rematch of a playoff snowbound classic from last season, the Los Angeles Rams at Philadelphia Eagles. 10 teams come into week 3 chasing perfection, and this is a matchup between two of them. But neither of these teams has looked great in grinding out wins in the first 2 weeks. Matt Stafford has not had a 300-yard passing game yet, which is unlikely, but the Jalen Hurts and the Eagles receivers have recorded a meager 253 passing yards through the air after just 2 games. Stafford has had to get rid of the ball quickly as the Rams O-line has been pretty awful in pass protection thus far. The Eagles have a really good O-line, but the Rams have a dynamic bunch of young pass rushers, so all of that needs to weigh into whose passing game is going to get working here. The Eagles should have joy on the ground as usual via Hurts, of course, via the tush push, and then they've got Saquon Barkley. But what their passing game delivers here could be pivotal. If they get Dallas Goedert back for this one, that would certainly help. At home, I have to go for the Eagles to grind out another win, as I think they will be able to get to Stafford enough to limit the Rams' passing game in this one. So I'll go for the Eagles to win this by 20 points to 17 over the Rams. Right, New York Jets at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 2-0 Bucks at home to the 0-2 Jets. So an easy win here for the Bucks. It would look that way. Quite possibly. But I would love to get Tristan Wirfs back for this game, which is beginning to look on the hopeful side for him. But they've lost Luke Goedeke at the other tackle position. They also have other issues on their D line as well. So how that O line performs this season, it struggled last week against the Texans' strong pass rush. It really needs to stand up here. Whilst the Jets' pass rush may not be as fearsome as that one the Texans have, it is still useful. So the Bucks O line has to protect Baker Mayfield better in this game. If Mayfield does get time, he could exploit injuries the Jets have in their secondary, whilst their own O-line has to do enough for Bucky Irving and Rashad White to add to their 187 rushing yards on the year combined in their own version of Sonic and Knuckles. The Bucks just look to have too much offensive power for the Jets to cope with in this one, and should win with room to spare. So I've gone for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 27, the New York Jets 17. Which moves us on to the Indianapolis Colts at the Tennessee Titans. The Colts are so far the Broncos of 2025, as they are the surprise 2-0 team on the rise as they head to Nashville to face the winless Titans. But could this be a banana skin type game for the Colts? That tends to happen when dominant teams take their opponents for granted. I don't think the Colts will see themselves as a dominant team yet and will surely recognise the signs of life the Titans have shown in the opening weeks of the season. And with the Titans having injuries that could severely weaken the right side of their O-line and also to nose tackle T'Vondre Sweat, particularly on the O-line side, that could mean trouble for Cam Ward's protection and good news for Jonathan Taylor as if the nose tackle isn't there, as it could open up the ground game for the Colts. This might have been closer than many expected, but the injuries the Titans are having to deal with are likely to make this the resurgent Colts' third win of the season. So I've gone for Tennessee Titans 16, Indianapolis Colts 27. On to the Las Vegas Raiders at the Washington Commanders. Both teams opened up the season with wins, but lost to good teams in week 2 to fall to 1-1. Ordinarily, Commanders at home would have to be fancied to win this one. But with star quarterback Jaden Daniels looking increasingly questionable for this game and may well miss it, and their running back room being depleted, this one should be a close call. Question on this one is, which Geno Smith will we get to see here? The superb one of week 1 or the error-prone one of week 2? If Daniels misses, Marcus Mariota will come in. He threw 4 touchdowns and no interceptions in his limited appearances for the Commanders last season. And we can probably expect a conservative passing game plan for him again in this game. Avoid errors, basically, which puts more onus on the ground game to deliver. So, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, this could be your moment. But the Raiders D has conceded just 124 rushing yards in their first 2 games and not allowed a rushing TD yet. If they can repeat that here, we could well have a shock on our hands. And I can see that happening here unless Daniels plays. So on the basis Jaden Daniels doesn't play, I'm going to say the Raiders pull off a shock win in Washington by 20-17. So that's the part one of this weekly preview, where I look at the Thursday night game and the early Sunday slot. I'll come back with part two, which will cover the Sunday late games and the Monday night games in part two. But that wraps up part one of this weekly preview, and I'll see if I can. There's one or two big ones I've called in there. So I think I might do quite well. This seems a trickier week to call than the first 2 weeks, if I'm honest. So if I manage to keep any up to that 85% accuracy rate, if I get 13 out of 16 right this week, I'll be happy. 12 out of 16, I'll be really happy, reasonably happy, because I think it's going to be a tricky week. But there you go. That's how I see week 3 panning out for the Thursday night football in the early slot. I'll come back with part 2 where I'll look at the remainder of the games shortly. See you soon.